Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, and locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. And we're delighted you're in class with us today. Blake is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Thank you very much, Blake, for being side by side with us. And if you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. I apologize for yesterday. We have marginal internet service provided by an organization called CenturyLink. And CenturyLink is so marginal, I never know if we're going to have the internet or not. I was able to broadcast because it was through numeric address, a numeric address, that I could get the audio through, but I couldn't get the call screen through because that is with words. And I believe the translating computer between numerical addresses and words that we use, like, Drudge Report, that kind of thing, was broken. And that's why I could not see the call screen. And for those of you who called yesterday, my apologies. I had the call screen on my desk. However, it doesn't show anything because I wasn't connected, because the translation computer that's in the internet, of which there are many all over the country, was down. And I'm going to talk a little bit about CenturyTel as soon as I introduce your instructor, Rich Scheben. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Well, thank you, Vincent Finelli. Happy TGIF to you.
Yeah, hey, thanks for being with us. Rich, if it's okay with you, I'd like to postpone the directed return fire special broadcast to be with you on Tuesday. My voice is not of sufficient strength to be yelling and screaming and pounding my fist on the desk, which is what I expect to be doing during that special broadcast. And it is a special broadcast, and it is how to survive the way the Finelli family does for 3 generations. And it will be hard hitting, and it will show you how we do it here in our family. And that will be Tuesday, if that's okay with you, Rich Scheben.
Absolutely.
Okay. I wanted to mention something. I said that we had a problem with the internet. CenturyLink is the worst telecommunications provider on the planet, in my opinion. And so yesterday I was on the phone for darn close to an hour with them to tell them that, the latest internet outage. And so they always say the same thing. I mean, after you get through the automated choices, you finally can get to a person. And this darn automated response says, I see you want to talk with someone. But let me ask you a few more questions. I see you want to talk to someone, and they just do everything they can to avoid letting you talk to someone. I finally talked to someone. She's a really sweet gal. And I said, the problem is CenturyTel is unreliable. It's the worst telecommunications company I can think of. By the way, look it up for yourself. And I told this lady, look it up for herself, and she'll see that the company that she works for is miserable. And I said, well, I don't really want to take it out on you, but you and I are on the phone, and I'm going to have to tell you what's going on. So I didn't yell and scream. I just explained to her that her company is miserable. And I wanted a full month credit. She didn't bristle at all, was willing to help me. I got transferred to a person who was willing to take down that request, and I got a full month's credit. And that's what you need to do, class. If you have a problem with your lousy telephone company, if it's CenturyLink, there's no question it's a lousy company. But you can call them up, be persistent, be polite, and demand that you get a full month's credit every time. Now, one of the problems that I had was I was suckered into a $10 discount per month by direct pay. Well, I fixed that yesterday. I said, no, I don't want direct pay. We're not doing that anymore. They said, well, you have to send it in writing. And I just got transferred to another person. I kept asking the same questions to different people. And by the way, you get different answers. So the first person tells me, no, I can't discontinue my direct pay unless I fill out a form or go on the internet or something like that. Well, the internet doesn't work with CenturyLink. And that was the problem. So finally, I got to another person, and just over the phone, I said, I don't want direct pay anymore. And I got my direct pay taken off. Now, of course, I probably lost my discount as well. However, here's what I'm going to do. So, and I told him I'm going to do it. I said, look, you guys mess up the internet and you charge me for something that I'm not receiving. I am going to do a credit card chargeback every time you do this. And it's going to cost you $35. I told him up front, the service is lousy. Every time I get lousy service, I'm going to do a credit card chargeback of the full telephone bill, the full bill. There on notice. Now, if enough of us do that, they'll get their act together and they'll actually fix their equipment and maintain it so it's a little more reliable. A little more reliable, we'd be up to third world status. It is miserable. It is so... You think I'm kidding, right? I know you know I'm not kidding.
I didn't mean for you to hear me laugh. I just, when you said third world status, you're so absolutely right. And
well, I don't mean we have third world status. I mean, if they fix it, we'll be up to third world status.
Well, and I get it. You know, here we have a system. We have a fascist system where monopolies thrive because they don't want competition. So this is what happens to a country when you eliminate free markets, supply and demand, and the big corporate oligarchies are protected by big government with a lot of help from the mainstream media and the corrupt court system.
Yeah,
the little guy doesn't stand a chance. And this is why I'm looking at the stock market right now, in case you listeners want a really good website to look at everything from the Dow to the S&P, the NASDAQ, crypto, the whole works. MarketWatch.com is very accurate and minute-to-minute updates. And we're down over 300 points right now on the Dow. So as we've been talking many times, Vince, as you know, I do a lot of Economic 101 updates and analogies. Well, what do you expect when you have consumer debt growing much faster than GDP growth? You know, debt's climbing faster than wages in America.
Absolutely. No question.
And all these companies, I've mentioned so many times how the big corporations, they're not even putting money into R&D or new products or new employees or new expansion or products and services. They're using this free money they're getting or close to free money, and they're creating new debt. Share buybacks, dividends, executive cash in the form of stock options, and mergers and acquisitions, and everything to consolidate and lose jobs, especially high-paying jobs, not for the benefit of the people. And whenever I say little people, folks, I don't mean like the bottom 10% of cash flow. I mean the bottom 93% of cash flow. Pardon my little interrupted rant there, Vince, but I just had a comment on that.
Okay, so I was on the phone with this gal, and I said, I'll tell you how bad you guys are. You guys are so bad that when there's a problem with the telephone line, which is underground, you don't fix it. What you do is you patch it. So you take a piece of wire, and this particular telephone wire problem was occurring and reoccurring. They ran the wire through our creek. Literally, they ran the wire underwater. And the rocks shift and the wire gets cut, and then the telephone service goes down for everybody, down the road. Well, we're one of the first to be connected through this wire, and everybody else is down the road from us in terms of telephone service. So I said, so what your guy did was he took a piece of wire and he spliced it in there, and then he threw the wire over the trees, my trees, and he's got the wire running from tree to tree to tree. And then it goes, and then it reconnects, farther down the road. I said, I just might want to cut my tree down. And she said, oh my. That's gonna take out the telephone service for your road. Oh, really? So what I'm telling you is we do have solutions and answers. And of course, I'm sure I'd be arrested for cutting my own tree because they stuck their wire on my tree and I'd be, disrupting telecommunications. Well, how do I know that? How do I know that's what that wire is there for? Anyway, so I talked more and more and I explained how bad their service is. And one of the things she said to me was, one of the three gals, and one of them said, okay, what's a good number for me to, in case we have a problem, for me to contact with you? I said, I don't know. I don't know what a good number is. But I do have a telephone number, but it's not a good one. It's the one that you guys gave me. It's the one that doesn't work a lot. That's the one I have, but it's not a good one. And that's what they ask. What's a good telephone number? I don't have a good telephone number. I have a sometimes telephone number. And so when people call me, they go, hey, how come you don't answer the phone? Because it didn't ring. Because it didn't ring. What? Rich, how many times do you've got a similar miserable phone company. How many times do I leave a message for you and you go, I didn't get it? And now,
yeah, and they always, when I call and complain, they have me give the number of the person who I didn't receive the message, or vice versa. Did you ever call them, by the way, Vince?
No, but I think on Monday when we do directed return fire, one of the targets of our directed return fire, we're going to give solutions, literal examples of you can do this, and here's exactly what you do. We'll do that on Monday. Okay.
Well, you know what? You know what could be the issue too, Vince. It's part of the new American workforce is rewarding mediocrity. I talk about the law of diminishing returns all the time, and how basically you don't get a job through hard work, effort, proven results, qualifications, and word of honor and commerce anymore. It's usually done through what group you're in. But could this be? Could this suboptimal work with the phone companies, which they have a monopoly on, which I think really affects your work ethic when you don't have competition? But
I got a great idea.
Could this be an opportunity for 5G Wi-Fi and magnetic field RF weapon technology in our neighborhoods? Could they be doing mediocrity for this purpose?
Hold that thought, but I got a great idea based on what you just triggered in my mind. We'll be right back. I'm going to share that idea. So, Rich, I was thinking about, when you talk to these people on the phone, and so I was thinking that the next time I might say the following. Are you doing this to me because I'm Asian? Is that why you're doing it? Are you guys picking on me? Are you giving me lousy telephone service because I'm Asian? Or because my wife is black? Or because my son is Mexican? Or my other son is an American Indian? Or my brother who lives in the basement was transgender but now is just plain queer? Is that why you're doing this to me?
Well, now that we can identify as a transgender in training to be a lesbian, with any skin pigmentation, any particular group, any gender, any sex, any religion, any ideology, what the hell, right? We can manufacture our own perception to the people who have followed and cultivated and groomed to follow this whole system of manufacturing pity and guilt and perception and swaying public opinion. This is how, exactly when we have no barometers, when work ethic means nothing, when the powers that be insult, degrade, and disrespect every group out there, and work ethic, ability, and intelligence does no longer matters compared to what group you're in. This is the society that we have, and if you say anything, you get called racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, conspiracy theorist, etc., all for the purpose of making you submissive to break your will. And that's why they demonize, discredit, and delegitimize the person saying it. It all boils down to the divide and conquer strategy is all about lowering the bars of standards and expectations at every level. Once the elites was able to lower the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job, keeping a job, and having the corporations work for the people in lieu of the wealthy shareholders, then it was all downhill from there, Vince.
Okay, I agree. Well, so here's what happened. So yesterday, I said, I've got on my telephone bill for CenturyLink, it says I have to, my discounts expire. I had like 4 discounts. And they said they're set to expire March, this year and April. And you have to call them. You have to call them to ask them to renew them. So I said, I'm calling while I'm also complaining about my lousy phone service, and while I'm saying I demand a month of credit for lousy phone service, I also want to renew these discounts. And the gal was really polite, and she said, well, we don't do that anymore. We don't have those discounts. When they expire, they expire. That's it. You don't get them anymore. Now, they used to give you a loyalty discount. So if you've been with them for a while and you pay your bill on time, they'd give you like a $10 discount. That's kind of nice of them. I mean, they raise it $20 and they give you $10 if you complain. So, you're always behind. Well, she said the discounts we don't do that anymore. Well, in my complaints, I got transferred to another person. And I acted like I never asked the first person about my discounts. And I said, well, while I've got you on the phone, I'd like to renew my discounts. She said, sure, we can do that. So she renewed my discounts. Now I got a $20 discount plus a $10 discount plus another $10 discount. By the time I was done, my $90-something phone bill was down to $40-something, high 40s. So I almost cut it in half by just asking for these discounts. And I said yesterday on the air to do this. Well, I'm telling you, I did it and it works. It absolutely works. So you need to do that. You need to keep asking. And it's like calling the IRS. If you call the IRS and you say, I just have this one question. I was reading this form, and boy, it's complicated. It's really complicated. But so I called and thanks for answering my phone call. Here's my question. They'll tell you that they're not responsible for the answers. You can't rely on the answers that the IRS gives you. I'm not talking about you're calling some guy from H&R Block who doesn't know anything anyway, my opinion. I'm saying if you call the IRS and you ask the IRS employee about something relating to IRS taxes, they are not responsible for the information they give you. Can you imagine that? And what I'm telling you is I talked to several people yesterday from CenturyLink, and I got different answers. And I didn't give up till I got the answer I wanted, which was, I want my phone bill lowered. And we got it. Now, bear in mind, they're the crappiest phone company on the planet, CenturyLink. So, class, here's what you do. And I told them I was going to do it. I told them I was going to say it. And I told them how they could listen in to what I was going to say. And I told them I was going to beat them up. And here I am. I'm beating them up. They're terrible. Ask for discounts. Ask for credits. Demand it. Rich Sheaben's with us, offgridmontana.com. And that's spelled the traditional way. Unless you work for Amazon and you're illiterate, you'd spell it offgridmontana.com. So, and that's the way Montana is spelled, Montana, by Amazon if you're looking for, or if you were looking for Rich Sheaben's book. Hey, Rich, I told you about an article that was written, and I'm in it. It just came out yesterday. 417 magazine. Now, 417 magazine is a glossy magazine in the Springfield area. It's really to serve people in area code 417. So they call it 417 magazine. And the main article this month is, and you won't believe it, class, who's got the best hamburgers in Springfield? No kidding. They've got pictures of the best hamburgers. Wow, you wouldn't believe it. It'd make you want to move to Springfield just from this article. Well, also in the article is a very long, also in the magazine is a very long article. And it's about preparedness-minded people. And it's, let me go to get the title of it. It's kind of strange. But the why 417 land is Mecca for doomsday preppers by a guy named Dan Rowe. Now, I know Dan Rowe. He interviewed me for 6 hours, multiple times, a couple hours in person, and the rest on the telephone. And he checked and cross-checked and triple cross-checked the things that I said. He went to a meetup, and he met some of the USA preparedness instructors, and he wrote an article mostly about us and some of our feelings. Well, I asked Rich to take a look at it and to see what he thought. And Rich, in your own words, and by the way, I'll post this on the website, USA Prepares, during the broadcast. It's a pretty long article. It's an eye-opener. What was your reaction to the article, Rich Scheben?
Well, I'll be honest. It's analogous to what they're doing to, you were making a little joke, a little tongue-in-cheek there about the way they spell Montana. And the reason why Vince mentioned that, folks, is because they purposely misspelled my book title so search engines couldn't pick it up. They said my book was out of stock. They're deleting 5-star reviews, replacing them with 1-star reviews. They're doing everything in their power to censor and surveil through the technocracy. And that's analogous to the answer to your question, Vince. I feel that they're doing everything in their power to diminish, make anybody else's voice derogatory that's not from the mainstream media, especially in the realm of preparation, self-sufficiency, learning trades, skill sets. This is why they want to distract, dumb down, and divide us by groups. They want to social indoctrinate you in school from kindergarten all the way through college so we can have chaos and infighting, and that's part of the divide and conquer strategy. But now it's morphed into making people, so we've literally taken our youth and taught them how to push buttons, manage paper, and be politically correct. They don't have skill sets anymore. So I feel that those articles were on the derogatory side, and I get calls very regularly. I'm gonna say use the number 40. I've had at least that many production companies contact me, and I try to give them the consideration of talking to them at least half the time. And they want me to star in a documentary or a reality show or something of that nature. And I turn them down because it's all scripted. It's all meant to show people that you might be a little off, that there's no reason to prep. Who cares about food storage? You don't need to have it to grow a garden. Go to the store, buy your GMOs, get sick, buy your Monsanto seeds, which 96% of the people on the board and stockholders say we shouldn't disclose what's in the GMO foods to the people. So basically, we're being dumbed down to the point where they want to make anybody who's a thinker derogatory. And anybody and everybody else needs to be cultivated and groomed to being zombies, to being followers. And that's the impression I got when I read not just that article, but most articles. I think that there's a fine line there, but they make it very obvious when you read between the lines that it's not a positive effect for the people. Vince?
Okay, I've got a comment. So, I was absolutely frosted the first time I saw Doomsday Preppers. John Statmiller invited me to watch Doomsday Preppers at his house in Texas. So I went there, and I spent some time with him, and he said, you got to see this. You won't believe it. Well, I was stomping around his living room. I couldn't believe what I was watching. These people who are acting totally unlike anybody I know who's a preparedness-minded person. So I called Doomsday Preppers, and eventually I found out it's really not National Geographic. It's an entertainment company called Sharp Entertainment. And I finally got to talk to the casting director. Her name is Brooklyn Bagwell. She's been on the air with me at least 5 times. 5 one-hour times. And so I met her. I said, hey, you want to see people who are preparedness-minded? Why don't you come to our expo? I'll show you around. I'll introduce you to people who are real preparedness-minded. Not like the people you have acting out all sorts of idiotic scenarios on your TV entertainment show. She came down twice. And I introduced her around, and a couple of the people I introduced her to ended up on Doomsday Preppers. One of them's name is Alan. Another one, his name is Franco. Franco and Alan are interested in aquaponics. Well, I talked to Alan last night. Alan actually sent me the link to the article. Alan is an engineer, an electrical engineer. He's a really smart guy. He's not one of these people that you would typically see on Doomsday Preppers. So here's what happened. So Doomsday Preppers decides, well, we'll have a little contest on TV with Alan and Franco. They live, in the Springfield Village near there, if you will, within a 50-mile radius. And so they're going to have a little contest. Who's got the best aquaponics system? Putting fish and plants in the same tanks and letting them live in harmony. And you can harvest the fish and eat them. What a great way to go. So during the filming, the director of the filming says to Franco, hey, you feed these worms that you grow to the fish. Let's get a shot of you eating one of these worms. Now, Franco is not raising worms and grubs and bugs to eat. He's raising them from rotting fruit so that he can then feed them to the fish rather than buying fish food, because in a grid-down situation, he's not going to be able to go to the store and buy fish food. So he's raising his own food for the fish so he can eat the fish. So the producer says, let me get a shot of you eating a bug. And Franco says, no way. What are you, nuts? Well, the producer says, I'll tell you what. You do it and I'll do it. So Franco begrudgingly looks for the smallest one and eats it, and he said it was disgusting. He ate it, and then he turned to the producer and said, okay, your turn. The producer said, no way. No way. When you talk about scripted, I'm telling you firsthand, that's what Franco told me. He told me firsthand. That's what they did to him. And he said he was sick for 3 days, violently ill for 3 days after doing that. And what did they use as the teaser to get you to watch? Franco's daughter screaming, oh, Daddy, don't, oh, it's disgusting. That's what they showed him eating this bug. Yep.
Well,
so
and this is one of the reasons why I talk about Economics 101. We have over $1 trillion in debt for school loans, credit card loans, automobile loans. I mean, we have the highest debt in way over 10 years. It's not just household either. Corporate, government debt, our trade deficit is ballooning, our budget deficit is ballooning, our debt is out of control. We're hanging by a thread and dangling from a cliff at the same time. So when again, look at the stock market, folks.
Yeah.
Not that the stock market really represents the average Joe's portfolio, because the average Joe is broke. But when you have no more options, when affirmative action, quotas, political correctness, and all the thousands of subsets under political correctness has dominated and become our pagan god, and we have a fascist system where the big corporate oligarchies are literally protected by big government and the mainstream media and the court systems, what do? Tell me what you do. There's not a lot of options out there. And that's one of the reasons why I live off-grid, because I was forcibly retired. When they discriminated against me after I got diagnosed with nerve damage and spinal stenosis, I couldn't even sue. Because one of my attorneys, I consulted at least 30 attorneys, told me I didn't have enough group self-pity points as a white male. So what do? Seriously. When hard work, effort, proven results, qualifications, and word of honor for commerce means nothing, what do? How do you separate yourself from the pack to get a job? And that's one of the reasons why I give that high jump analogy over the air every couple of months, Vince, because it shows what America has turned into. When you can't use hard work, effort, proven results, qualifications, you can no longer control your own destiny. And that's what we have in America. And those people, whether they be on Doomsday Preppers or any of the other shows that I've been asked to be on, they're trying so hard to show people how to can, to show people how to raise animals, to show them the solar array, show them alternative energy, show them different ways of living. And what the powers that be want to do is make that derogatory, because they want to groom the people to be followers and not thinkers. And we have to think outside the box, because we don't have any more options. Options are dwindling. And I can give numbers after numbers after numbers and math over math over math to show that we are losing ground, Vince.
Okay. When we come back, I'm going to give you a few parts of the article and how this article, some people are calling a hit piece on preparedness. Now, they didn't hit me. They didn't hit me, but they hit everybody else. Everybody else, except for Norm Shealy. They didn't hit him either. Other than that, they hit Sheben's with us. And, so I'm looking at this article. I printed it off, a little larger print, so if I, want to read it on air, I can. But the article has a subtitle that says Apocalypse, Eventually. Nobody's prepared for what's coming, and that's what it says. And it goes, I can't believe it. I mean, I just can't believe the take on this particular article. It was somewhat kind to me, but let me give you an example. Here's how the article starts. I'm going to read this. I hope I'm not going to bore you, but just think about the tone that this sets, okay? It starts out, I had a dream. Now, this is not me. This is what the article says. This is what one of our instructors, Len Pence, Len, L-E-N, space, P-E-N-S-E, allegedly said to the author of this article. I was not there when this was discussed. But here's what it says. I had a dream not long ago that was sort of like God said, I'll show you these things. And that we lost both grids on the east and west coast. And I saw trains coming in, packed, standing room only, from both coasts. And they were just releasing them into the Mark Twain, which means the Mark Twain Forest, and everywhere. Those people were then forming little camps, 15, 20 people per camp. And I saw a colored boy and a white boy, youngsters, and they were talking. And the white boy is talking, and he says, if you steal wood from any of these people, only take one piece. Because if you take more than that, they'll miss it. Next thing I see is they hanged the colored boy because they caught him stealing. And they had established, I think, about 1,000 trees in the forest out in Mark Twain to hang people from if they catch them stealing or whatever. And I had a big dog. My dog died of bone cancer, of all things, 2 years ago. But he was half Rottweiler and half German Shepherd. He was a dog, and he was with me in this. And I also have a police riot gun, a 12-gauge that holds 8 Magnum shells. So I'm seeing all this stuff happening. And then I look around, and my dog's gone. So I picked up my shotgun, and I went to look for my dog. And I found 5 men, and they were already skinning him to eat. And it says, a dream Len Pence had, circa fall 2017. Now, my question is, what in the heck is that doing in an article about preparedness and preparedness-minded people? Why is that in there? It sets the tone that these guys are nuts. These guys are killers. These guys are just not normal. That's the tone that is set, in my opinion, from that statement that I read, which is the opening 2 paragraphs of this article. Then it talks about how Len Pence has a 21-acre hilltop property in Missouri, and how he raises his own food and those kind of things. And then it goes on, and it says, if anything, he feels sorry for the rest of us, the uninitiated, unprepared masses whose balded snow tires will halt at the felled oak tree atop his withering driveway, those whom he tried to help but wouldn't listen. And it goes on, and another part of this article is called Paranoia Incorporated. Paranoia Incorporated. And it goes on, a couple pages later, I'm just flipping the pages here, and it talks about this guy called the Mastermind. The Mastermind. That would be me. It talks about me. Then it goes on, going into a break. I'm just trying to figure out some of these. His name is Andrew. He has no last name. He says adding a colon keeps him from being cataloged in the system. Talks about Andrew. And it says another title of a section is My Foxhole, My Rules. That's not about me. Then another one is Follow the Leader. I'm going to put a link here. And, of course, they show AK-40s, they show AR-15s. Naturally, right? Naturally. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Scheben's with us. And, class, I'd like to just take a couple minutes and read several paragraphs of this article. I'm going to read the part that's about me so you know what people think of me that are outside this classroom. Anyway, here it is. So this is the article on 417 Magazine, current month, March 2018. And I just posted on the website a link to this article, and I also sent it out to 5,000 of my closest Facebook friends. And the only thing I do with Facebook is post what the broadcast is going to be about. And that's what Ron Gibson uses as the title for the YouTube videos that he puts out, which are really not videos, they're audios of this broadcast. And he's been posting them for years on Facebook on the Ron Gibson channel. So he uses what I say in Facebook about who's going to be on and what we're going to be talking about. Thank you, Ron Gibson, for all your hard work. Well, here it is. So the article continues and it says, however, also like Fight Club, it wasn't long after Y2K that a group of Springfield preppers started chatting about their extracurricular activities. One man, Vincent Finelli, tried to bring them together and teach preppers from all walks of life how to survive, only to be cast out by the people he tried to save. The next title is The Mastermind. Quote, I would love to say that there are thousands and thousands of people who are learning from the examples we've taught on the air and the expos and the meetups, that there are thousands and thousands of people who are implementing this, Finelli said. But it's not true. Finelli sits across from me at the food court picnic table inside Sam's Club on Sunshine Street, where he requested that we meet. The retired computer systems designer turned radio talk show host and homesteader has salt and pepper hair, wears a plaid shirt and jeans, and carries a .45 caliber automatic firearm on his person. He won't say where. Below his strong jawline hangs a leather bag full of crushed sapphire, meant to enhance his overall health. Finelli's not from around here. An adopted Midwestern politeness hardly masks direct, fast-thinking, faster-talking East Coast roots, although he won't tell me where he's from exactly. He's guarded like that. He won't say where he went to college, only that he graduated from a prestigious undergraduate program and got an MBA. Nor will he say where he worked after, only that he started a company on the West Coast to manufacture satellite communications receivers before a Japanese competitor threatened to kill him. He will say, give me a second here. Okay. He will say he knows that the moon landing was faked. In 1982, he moved back east from California and began designing computer systems for a Fortune 100 credit card company. I was a computer jockey, he says. So, for example, when you think of press 1, press 2, press 3 on the phone, I built one of the first systems in banking on the East Coast, and I apologize for that. Finelli's company began securitizing debt portfolios, a process that began in the 80s and fed into the mid-2000 financial crisis. Finelli didn't like that. That's when he had that moment of, this is a house of cards, he says. So in the late 1980s, he quit and became a farmer, first out east, and then in, he mentioned the town I live in, Grove Spring, by 2005. He points to the cash registers over his left shoulder and says, I bet there's not one thing you bought here today that didn't use electricity in the transaction, he says. Before Y2K, Finelli said he owned a small computer manufacturing company and personally upgraded 8,000 operating systems so the dates would roll over from 1999 to 2000. Because they wouldn't, he said. There was a defect. I know that the computer systems are frail because I built them. He says a widespread power outage could cripple us. No electricity, no trading debt portfolios, no buying wholesale taquitos on credit. Around 2011, Finelli sat in the waiting room at KWTO ahead of his radio appearance. He was there to spread the gospel of preparedness to his family and friends who he thought needed to know. It was his first time on the air. He was nervous. Springfield pain specialist Dr. Norman Shealy noticed Finelli's angst after finishing his own radio spot and gave him a few drops of Air Bliss, an essential oil blend he developed to calm the nerves. The remedy worked, and Finelli began wearing his new friend Norm's sapphire crystals around his neck. After the KWTO spot, Finelli launched USA Prepares, his own radio show on the Genesis Communications Network, home to talk radio personality Alex Jones. He claims his solar-powered studio is the world's only off-grid global radio station. If 7 billion people suddenly lost power, he would be Ira Glass. For now, we broadcast Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m., and Finelli invites instructors, doctors, dentists, survivalists, a man who carries no identification, an Australian woman who talks about seceding from the government, anyone who has something relevant to preparedness. To Finelli, there's little that's irrelevant. There's little that isn't relevant. He doesn't sell merchandise or accept donations as fellow GCN hosts, such as Jones do. That's pretty much what they have to say about me. So I thought I'd let you know what other people think. Some of it's not accurate. There's some parts about Norm Shealy. That wasn't my first broadcast where Norm Shealy gave me the drops of bliss. It was multiple broadcasts, and Norm Shealy and I got acquainted, and I was in the studio getting ready, walking in to do my show, and Norm was there, and Norm was getting ready to leave from the broadcast. And the way it works is, there's a studio, and then the guy before you is on, and then at the top of the hour, he gets ready to leave. You come in, you switch seats, and you get up to the microphone, and you do your show. Well, during that short few minutes, I got a chance to meet Norm Shealy. He noticed that, my knees were knocking, and a few weeks later, he brought me some bliss, and he thought he would help me. And that's how Dr. Norman Shealy and I became really, really close. He initiated the kindness first, Dr. Norman Shealy. And there's a part of this article about Norm Shealy and things he believes and does. And I think you'll find it interesting, but the slant, I really think, should have had a piece that said, you know what? There are all kinds of sizes and shapes and thoughts in the preparedness arena. Some things I disagree with. I mean, if I were the author of this article, some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. But, the takeaway is we all need to be more prepared, kind of like the Boy Scouts. And what I think a piece that's missing in this article is, readers, what we learned as Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts was absolutely valuable. And that USA Prepares has taken this to the next level, teaching people how to think, how to be more prepared, building on what the Boy Scouts originally taught, and the Girl Scouts. But that wasn't said in the article. What do you think, Rich?
Well, I went to the Boy Scouts for many years. I was in the Weeblos and the Cub Scouts, and they basically, when you grew up in the metropolitan area of New York City, they were my only choice or shot at really finding nature. And I got indoctrinated into nature, and my dream brought me out to the Northern Rockies to live my mountain man dream, if you will, live off the land and all the things that I talk about. So, you said a lot of things in the last few segments, and I'll try to comment on as much as I can. When you were talking about the first two paragraphs, when you read them, you're like, why are they in there? And I think we've covered that pretty much. It's basically, the mainstream media, they're not just fake news that bought and paid for. So even when a little outfit can pad that narrative, they're going to get kudos from the mainstream media, because the mainstream media, again, is to manufacture perception, pity, guilt, and ideology, and sway public opinion and hold on to the narratives, memes, themes, talking points, and microphone. So that being said, I'll just give you an example. Just when we were watching, or during the hard break, they talked about a few things on the news. Unfortunately, a shooting at Michigan University, which killed at least 2 people. But they also mentioned why the stock market's going down. And I've got 1,000 reasons why the stock market's going down. I've said it over the weeks. I said a few reasons today. I can say 30 reasons off the top of my head. But guess what? They said it's because they're blaming Trump on trade wars. Now, as far as and this is part of the fascist system of the fake news, who are controlled by just a few of the elites at the very top. And this is analogous to where we're going, because they're trying to make preppers or people who think outside the box derogatory, because we don't have any other choice. There aren't any good jobs left, and the system of all these politically correct buzzwords like equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity, etc., prosperity, inclusiveness is not working, especially if you're not part of the right group. Now, talking about the trade deficit, we've been running a trade deficit since 1973. And what trade deficit means, folks, is that we buy basically more stuff than foreign countries sells us, okay? And it's been growing year over year over year. Well, the trade deficit in 2016 was over $500 billion, okay? This is before Trump got into office. So don't believe what you hear, because the powers that be are going to manufacture everything and anything to make sure that the people don't get America back, which Trump promised us. This is why we have so much foreign ownership of American properties, or lands, or ports, or equities, or hotels, the whole works. And we're topped with a consumption bubble, a Trojan horse bubble, and robotics, automation, artificial intelligence is really holding us back. Okay?
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Rich Sheben's with us, offgridmontana.com, offgridmontana.com. He's written a book, One New York Man's Journey to Off-Grid Living in Montana. You might want to check it out. It is on Amazon, and maybe they spelled it right. It's a kind of a template. What he's done about how to live off-grid. He doesn't have electricity from power poles like just about everyone else on the planet does, and he does it his way, and I applaud him for it. And we are doing that here too. This I believe is the world's first transcontinental off-grid broadcast. You know, when we broadcast with Gwyneth Isaacs, she's off the grid as well, and our broadcast is off the grid, and so end to end, and both ends are off the grid, and I believe we're the first to do that. I've got and you can too. You can do it too. I didn't have anybody show me how to do it. I just read and read and read, and I read for well over a year to learn how to do it. And I studied and studied, and I made some mistakes. But the bottom line is, it's working. There's something that's really bothering me, and I'd like to talk with Rich Scheben and the rest of the class about that. And this is an article on theweek.com, WEEK.com. And it's titled, The Disturbing Acceptance of Google's New Smart Camera. The Disturbing Acceptance of Google's New Smart Camera. So Google calls this thing Clips Smart Camera, CLIPS, Smart Camera. This thing is, about half the size of a deck of cards. And it's got a lens, and you stick it in the corner of your room, and it just figures out when it should start snapping those images. It's got artificial intelligence, and it looks around, and it decides when it should snap and when it shouldn't. It stores the pictures, and it doesn't really talk that much about whether it's wireless. I believe it's wireless. I believe it sends that information in. And of course, now Google's got a panoramic view of your house, wherever this thing is stored. And it's not cheap. It's $250. So only those who are ignorant of the facts would have one of these in their homes. Now, it's not just limited to homes. Oh, heck, maybe they're in bathrooms. Maybe they're in restaurant bathrooms. Maybe they're in bathrooms of businesses. Who knows? They're little. This is a technology that I absolutely despise. Now, it's bad enough when people walk around with smartphones and they're talking and the camera's facing out the back and a panoramic view is given of their house. Or if they're at your house, they walk around and they pace and they take that phone call. It's so important that they've got to interrupt being with you so they can take that phone call and talk about who's got the best hamburgers in Springfield. So people are walking around with their smartphones, and the images are being captured without their knowledge. The audio is being captured without their knowledge in their bedrooms. The video is being captured as they carry their smartphones wherever they go, and they're being tracked. And people know this. But, the convenience is so important to them, they're willing to do this. Well, now we've got this camera, and it's Google's Clips smart camera. $250 is all it takes so that you can send images of your most private moments in your home, of your children, wirelessly out there to be captured by we don't know who and stored for how long we don't know. And of course, I'm sure it's got GPS, so it knows where, probably to within a couple feet of where the images are taken. And people are buying these things. Now, here's the problem for me. Of course, I would never buy one. But I don't know who might have one in the corner of their room that I might go in. That bothers me. Now, what kind of a pervert would even think this up? Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, is on a quest to get more and more information about us. Everything we do. He hasn't been arrested for invasion of privacy. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I'm toying with the idea of disconnecting from Facebook. Of course, it'll hurt our class members. But I'm wondering, why am I doing this? Rich, do you have any comments about what I mentioned about that camera? That spy camera?
Yeah, I got a lot of comments.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal a paraphrase from John Regan, and I use this all the time. Whenever you see the word smart, you can basically exchange that with the word spy. It's a very, very accurate synonym. Now, you mentioned Zuckerberg. I mean, here's a guy, it's unbelievable how many people get upset by the littlest things because you use even an implication towards a certain word that somebody gets offended. But yet, how many Americans, how many people in the world are on Facebook, as I call the self-incrimination station? And yet, Zuckerberg called the people who use it effing stupid. Zuckerberg called the people who use it effing stupid. And you wonder why the bottom 93% is getting a confiscation of wealth. Now, and this goes, I'm going to go off into a tangent, but it's going to hold a lot of water here. All this, white male bashing and all this stuff. Well, let me ask you, when you hear CNN or MSNBC or any of the mainstream media bashing white males, are they going to have the guts? I think you should start asking them, America, are they going to have the guts to confiscate the wealth of Zuckerberg? How about Zucker from CNN? How about Rothschild, Rockefeller, Gates, Jonathan Gruber, the architect of Obamacare? If you recall, he called the American people stupid as well. How about Bezos, Soros, Murdoch, the Clintons? Are you really going to ask, are any of these big mouths who are bashing white males actually going to confiscate the wealth of all these people? Are they? I think we should name it the Zuckerberg bill. Why don't we, the U.S., create excess laws, excess net worth, excess cash flow? If these people can literally buy treason, sedition, espionage, why don't we have excess laws? I think that's something that we should talk about. So I can go on and on and on here, Vince, but I'll hand the microphone back
tell you what.
to you.
This is kind of important, Rich, even. So, class, if you go to your Facebook page and you click on that little triangle that's pointing down on the right, on the blue bar, a little triangle, black triangle that points down. You click on that and you have a drop-down menu. Then you can click on General Account Settings. And you click on that, and I just did it. Then there's a link, and that link says, download a copy of your Facebook data. This is what those guys have collected about you, and you can do that. So you go to Facebook, your Facebook page. You click on that little down arrow on the right-hand side in the blue bar. You go to General Account Settings, and then you click on Download a Copy of your Facebook data. I just did it, and it's sitting there waiting. I have no idea what's going to come up. But this will give you a hint, tiny hint, of what these parasites are doing with information about you. Now, they have figured out who likes USA Prepares. They figured out who our friends are. They figured out who sends messages. They figured out how many people who are Facebook users who click on USA Prepares, how many of them went to the same schools and what schools they are. And then sometimes you'll see pictures and there'll be a box around the face and they'll say the equivalent of, do you know who this is? Type in the name of that person. They want to know everything. And I'll tell you what, if when I was going to school, someone did the equivalent of this in our neighborhood, they would have been beaten to a pulp. They would call these guys peeping Toms. These are the kind of people that would climb up and look over a stockade fence and watch girls swimming in bikinis, hidden from sight. That's what these people are like. They want to know everything. They want to listen in. And the generally dumb public is willing to say, well, I've got nothing to hide. How stupid can a person be? How stupid can a person be to say that?
Hey, Vince, this is when the big companies get to manufacture fake news, get to manufacture perception, get to manufacture everything. Like, for example, I'm watching the stock market right now, which is down 300 points. New news: S&P companies expected to buy back $800 billion of their own shares this year. See, they don't learn. They don't learn. It has nothing to do with fundamentals or markets or profits or the people or R&D or anything. They just buy back their own shares so they can feather the nest of the executives with stock options, and then they have the audacity to sell debt in the form of bonds, which is never going to be paid back in this instance. Everything is fake. You know, since we're talking about Facebook, Albert Einstein said, I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have generations of idiots. Well, do you think Jonathan Gruber and Zuckerberg may be right by calling everybody effing stupid? Huh? Maybe. Maybe we're wrong, Vince.
Let's define for our class, for those who might have a feeling for what we're talking about, but maybe don't fully understand it. Let's give them a very quick introduction as to executive compensation. Class, here's what happens. Today, CEOs tend to be compensated not on how many widgets the company sells or how many automobiles the company sells, but instead they're compensated on how much the stock price has appreciated. Increasing stock price is typically based on betting on the come, which means, well, you know, in the future it should go up because we're going to do all these wonderful things. So people will buy stock saying that, you know, I think General Motors is going to come out with a new car. It's going to be more efficient, and the stock, they're going to sell a lot of those cars, and everything's going to be wonderful, and the stock price will go up. That's kind of the way it used to be. So now executives are, like many executives, are paid or compensated based on the share price. So it's incumbent upon them to satisfy their own greed to drive the share price up, not to build better widgets, not to hire more people, but to lay off people, because if they get rid of people, they get rid of expense. If they close down buildings, they get rid of expense. They have less insurance, less overall costs, and so the company appears to be more profitable by getting rid of expenses, which are people, places, and things.
Yeah, but
traditionally,
I got a comment on that. Now we have a situation where 1 in 5 Americans have more credit card debt than savings. Now, when you look at borrowing and you look at the 2-year yield, if that starts going up again, like they plan on having 3 to 4 different rate hikes, the banks basically need to borrow at the 2-year yield, which has to be low in order for the interest rates to have a better spread so they can have more solvency so they can survive. Now, with consumer confidence not nearly as high as what they say, increased debt, no savings, very little business to sell loans to, plus losing money on existing loans because of the spread, the banks are going to lose on both ends, especially if the yield curve inverts. We, as a society, with this debt-based money and debt-based society, we need to change it and reward people and create incentives for limiting debt. And I call this like a light at the end of the tunnel program. Instead of rewarding the too big to fail and too big to jail and take on more debt, we're doing the exact opposite. So they can print money left and right. That's not going to create wealth or prosperity for the bottom 93%. 95% of that money goes to the top 1 to 7%. They can buy back stocks all they want. That's not going to, and that shouldn't increase the bottom line for companies. It's all money. Basically, it's going to be free money or low-interest money to these big corporations that the people are going to have to pay with increased inflation called cost shifting to pay for all the accounting gimmicks that's going on. Nothing is real. And this is the country we live in because we are not reading enough, we're not researching enough, and we're letting the mainstream media sway public opinion with their narratives. It's not a left-right paradigm. The left-right paradigm is very false and phony. It's very small. The true paradigm is the management of the people. It's the aristocracy versus the serfs. And until people get that, we're going to continue to have the status quo, and we're going to have an incognito caste system for the people, and it's the headwinds that we have for future rates of growth between everything, debt, credit, demographics, pensions, valuations, the corrupt central bank policies, Keynesian economics, and, of course, group identity politics. The game is totally rigged. And this is one of the reasons why we live off-grid and why we try to control our own destiny and think outside the box and be self-sufficient. Because we have a stagflationary, deflationary economy fraught with subsidies, money printing, special interest, lobbying, tax. It's a hybrid disaster. And we can't control our own destiny for the bottom 92%. And this is why we do these shows. This is why we talk about ideas and solutions. I talk about practice what you preach laws. I talk about QE or quantitative easing for the people. I've done this many times. I have a whole list of things. And the powers that be don't give a damn because they want to control the status quo. It's them versus us. There's nothing to do with all this inclusivity and prosperity and equality. It's all BS words. And the American people have to realize that they've been had. Vince?
When we come back, I'm going to tell you how this works. I'm going to tell you what the stock buybacks are all about, why they're being done. It's to confuse you. It's to make you think that there is prosperity when it's an illusion. And I'm going to give you very simple words to explain it. And by the way, I still don't have my download copy of my Facebook data. It's stuck. Last quick announcement. There's a small family farm conference in Missouri, March 8th and 9th. And I plan on being there with our son, who is a full-time farmer. And Joel Salatin will be there. And if you'd like to consider going, you can go to our website, usaprepares.com. Page number 1, there's information about it, the cost and so forth, contact information. That's March 8 and 9. I think it is so valuable that my son and I are going to take the time off to be there. Seriously. So you may want to consider that. And if you're there, you see some guy walking around, kind of funny looking, say hi. I'd love to meet you. We're talking about stock buybacks, and it's really simple. So there's a number of shares outstanding, and if a company can reduce the number of shares, each one will be worth a little bit more. So what companies are doing, they're taking some cash, and or they're taking some funds, or they're otherwise repurchasing the stock that they've issued. And the idea is to increase the share price. Now, something else that could be done with funds, a company could put some of that money into research and development, new products, new services, better ways of doing things, being more efficient, things like that. No, what the CEOs are trying to do is buy back stock. Why? To drive the price up. Why? Because their compensation is based on the price of the stock, not how innovative the company has become, not how great the products have become. It's make the products cheaper, 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 and drive the stock price up. Reduce the number of employees, reduce the number of physical buildings, reduce expenses wherever you can, buy back stock, drive the price up so the CEO can make even more millions. Okay. That being said, here's another, don't give money to your university. Here's an example of why. They have these endowments, okay, and they use these money for helping students with tuition, which is out of sight in terms of cost. I mean, $50,000 a year to go to the university? It's crazy. Well, Harvard gambled, and they hired a couple guys, and they paid them $242 million. $242 million for these few guys that they hired from between 2010 and 2014. And these guys thought they were smarter than everybody else, and they placed some bets, and they lost $1 billion. That's with a B, $1 billion of Harvard's endowment money. They squandered it because they thought they were smarter than everybody else. The story's in Bloomberg.com. Bottom line is, really? A university can lose $1 billion? First of all, where did it get the money? Okay. Second of all, how were they allowed to squander it and lose it? Who said, okay, guys, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's run these massive risks. It's okay. I know you guys know what you're doing, and you wouldn't lose any of our money. They paid him $250 million to lose $1 billion. Harvard.
Hey, Vince,
so when my university calls up and says, hey, Mr. Finelli, there's some students who really could use your help. How much would you like to give? Would it be $250? $500, $1,000? I always say the same thing. Hey, thanks for calling. I really appreciate it. This is about my refund, right? This is about my refund. Because even though I got a university education, even though it was from a pretty good university at the time, they still didn't teach me that the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. 6 years. 6 years of studying finance and economics formally. I've got one of those pieces of paper that says I completed successfully, the hoops that they wanted me to jump through. I did all that, and nobody told me, and in no book did they say the Federal Reserve is a private corporation. Rich Scheben?
Yeah, Vince, this is the strategy of the times. I mean, Clinton got rid of the Glass-Steagall Act, which made banks gamble with our money, and this is why the fake news is protecting the status quo, because it's the banks, it's the Federal Reserve, it's Wall Street, and they're losing ratings. In fact, I'm reading an article right now. CNN was once the most powerful name in cable news. Now it's defeated by the Hallmark Channel. So people are waking up. Vincent?
Hey, Rich, do you remember the expression, they hang short bankers from tall trees? Do you remember that?
We should bring it back.
Yeah. Quick question. Did you ever learn that the Federal Reserve was a private corporation in any of your studies?
Not in my studies, but my own research, yes.
Right.